Hello and welcome back to another episode of Indispection. This week we're looking at Lone Survivor, a game developed by Superflat Games. Lone Survivor is a survival horror adventure game. In this game, you wake up in your apartment in an almost apocalyptic situation, with an infectious disease changing others around you into monsters that you will come into contact with throughout your adventure. Your character knows he is one of none or possibly few survivors, and your aim is to travel around the apartment block, locating other survivors and eventually escape from the monsters outside. Along the way, you will need to avoid the monsters where possible, luring them away from the path you need to take. There are numerous different ways you can get around monsters. Immediately, you are given hunks of rotten meat, which you can place on the floor to attract the monsters, allowing you to get past. Later on, you're given a weapon, which you can sparingly use to get past monsters if there's no other way around. Simply sneaking around the monsters is the best way to progress. However, that's not always possible. Using up all of your resources can make the game more challenging later on. There is a limited supply available in each area, and using all of your supplies in an area will mean that you progress with less supplies, making the new area more difficult to potentially navigate or survive through. Being aware of your surroundings is extremely important in Lone Survivor, as without the use of a flashlight or other light source, you cannot interact with items around you. Interacting with the items and the scenery around you is super important, as it allows you to collect usable items and discover potential parts of the storyline which you may have missed. Interacting with the scenery also brings a new mode of travel, with strange mirrors dotted around the apartment block. One of these mirrors is also present in your apartment, and these mirrors allow you to fast travel across the apartment block and back to your home, where you can sleep and save your journey so far. These mirrors allow you to quickly travel, however you cannot choose which mirror to travel out from, you can only return to the one you most recently travelled home from. Sleep is necessary to continue towards your goal, as without sleep you may descend into hysteria. However, these hysterical states may lead to hallucinations which further develop the story, and even offer essential extra items so as to help the player. Avoiding sleep by use of pills may also slowly degenerate the health and mental well-being of the player. However, there are pills to help keep the player going slightly longer. Progressing throughout the game, there are various different pieces of old diary which can help to explain the storyline in more detail. Alongside this, progressing throughout the apartment block marks off new areas on the map possessed by the player, with interesting landmarks and events such as mirrors being marked onto the map for future reference. Upon re-entering areas, they can change in appearance. For example, there is a party you enter where you get to talk to your friends. Upon talking to the partygoers, one offers to give you an item outside on the balcony. This is where you receive the handgun and a small amount of ammunition so as to defend yourself against the monsters. Upon going back inside from the balcony, you see the party room has turned into a gory mess, with partygoers suddenly now monsters and blood up the walls. This is just one example of how rooms can change upon re-entry. This game has 3 different endings, with each decision you make giving a possibility of a different outcome. After completing the game, it shows which interactions affected the overall outcome, and helps to explain which decisions you made, which led to the ending you received. Lone Survivor uses a nice retro pixelated graphics style. The game itself is fairly dark with tons of gore, is super eerie and has very dark lighting. The use of the flashlight being carried around, only lighting up areas close to the player, is a brilliant method of creating suspense, as you never know what will be hiding in the darkness. The sound also helps to add to this suspense, as it plays sound when the monsters are nearby and within close range, but yet not always visible. Lone Survivor is a fairly immersive game. The sound within the game is what brings the immersion factor. For example, the use of footstep sounds when monsters are lurking in the shadows nearby, just outside of the flashlight range, helps you to really feel like you're there and feel like you can hear these footsteps coming towards you and that you need to make a plan to escape and quickly. The use of paranoia and hysteric hallucinations also help to bring immersion to the game, with interesting blurring overlays making the player think that maybe their vision is slightly going. Personally, I found the retro visuals somewhat subtracted from the immersion. The retro feeling just wasn't quite realistic enough to add to this immersion for me. With games like Amnesia being super realistic textures, I feel that fits slightly better and helps me to really feel like I'm there. However, the sounds and lightings did a really good job at immersing me into the game, and as such, the graphics was actually a minor subtraction which didn't play into it too much, especially when the psychological aspects come into play. Overall, I really enjoyed Lone Survivor. The suspense that the game built up helped to keep the game entertaining. For example, a lot of the game was waiting around to see if you could sneak past monsters or hiding in the shadows to see if you could get around them. As the game had already built up a lot of suspense, this waiting didn't feel too boring.